Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
They were just switching over from the EC meeting just a second ago, so.
Oh, yeah. He is.
I'll call the meeting of the commissioners. Introductions, I'm Paul Rasmussen from Durham. John Mullen from Middleton. Mike Kavinsky, Summersworth. Mark Richardson, Summersworth. Mike Lerman, Durham.
Dave Bizarre, Middleton, John Catherine Lee.
Sarah Briskin, Newmarket.
Peter Nelson, Newmarket.
Tom Barrington.
Steve Stansel, Wakefield.
Tom Fall, Madbury. Don Mancher, Northwood. Rick Healy, Rochester.
Steve Diamond.
Steve Diamond Barrington.
Lindsay Williams Dover.
Bill Watson, New Hampshire DOT.
Brown.
Steve Brown, Dover.
Lisa?
Lisa Murphy, SRPC.
And Rachel?
Rachel Dewey, SRPC.
And Jen Sis, SRPC.
Colin Lentz. Good, Commissioner Roundtable. I have.
I'm not a commissioner.
So it came to my attention this week, Durham's having PFAS showing up with some of their private wells. Okay, they are located on Durham Point near the New Market Port.
Don't look at me.
So, but there is enough undeveloped land in that section between us that you will not get notified by DES that there's stuff in the area. So you might want to have people all in that area. Just warn them that they might want to be getting tested.
I'm actually looking at data 7.2 right there. I'm trying to have more problems.
Yeah, the dry wells are just going to probably pull the PFAS fast, contaminate stuff faster. Which, that project you have.
I know. That's right. I was just telling the executive committee that we, working with DES, Rockingham Planning Commission, were awarded a grant to look at threats to drinking water supplies and do some implementation work on protection measures. So timeline still to be determined. Just got to notify that the funds were awarded. DES is the primary recipient. So, wait for the paperwork to happen.
And that area of the town's the last area that I think anybody was expecting PFAS.
Yeah.
So. Anything else for the roundtable?
But it's not really Newmarket specific. I moderated a panel yesterday at New Hampshire Housing and Economy Conference, and there were two SRPC communities on the panel. Mayor Birding from Summersworth spoke about how Summersworth is addressing housing and sort of rising to meet the demand, and Bart McDonough, the planning director in Newmarket, and they both did amazing. We have staff present, and we're happy and excited to see the region represented, and so much so that they took a picture of the stage and shared it with the whole office in our Teams chat. So,
Recently, this is an idea for other towns, or maybe you already do it, but I was asked to attend a pizza and planning, event that wasn't just the planning board, the townspeople were invited. And it was interesting that folks my age, went there for free pizza, didn't participate too much, but, we're in a sticky spot where we really can't add housing because of the way there's a lot of reasons. But one of the things that we're trying to do, and I don't know if other towns have this issue, small towns anyway, trying to find how to, town centers and stuff, to try to bring that back. Most of the discussion was, is it something that would ever be used anymore with current culture? Where are we thinking at it from an older person's perspective, or from a younger person's perspective? Because there were no young people there, sadly, we couldn't get their perspective. Something that I'm going to continue to push forward. I'm going to a meeting next month with the planning board specifically. What town is this again? Northwood.
Barrington is working on a project to create a town center. They're doing like a town center visioning project. Out there.
Yeah, they can help you with that. Connected to the right people.
Talk to me later on. Yes. Find young people.
That's not fair. Durham has a plethora of them. You're not necessarily in-state folks, but by the way, they were a joy. I went to that Salem, the UNH thing the other day. I spoke with those guys, Rich. What a nice group of kids.
Can I just share something? So right now, SoulSmart is offering free solar. What's the word I'm looking for? You can check. So sorry, free. But anyway, if you have a spot in your town where you're thinking affordability, like what it would cost to have solar array in your town. You don't have to do it, anytime soon. You don't have to do anything, but it's a great way to just get somebody to look at some properties or some places that might be great. And then you have something to put maybe in a future plan, or you have some idea of if it's even useful. Solar feasibility study there. So free, contact me, set you up. Any town is open to it, and it's only until the end of the year. So it's SoulSmart has like an arm that is a government funded. There's like an arm of it that can help with this solar feasibility. So if you all been like, what about that landfill? Or, what about that one field that, I don't know, whatever.
Like smaller projects like the roof of your municipal.
So their original ask was for the larger ones, but absolutely the smaller ones if possible. And they do love it if you can give like a list of a few options. All right. And then and I can give you, so just contact me, or tell me at the end of the meeting, and I can get you an email, and it's free. You just want to get it done before the funding goes away. Yeah. So that's great. I would love to have my right. Love it. Not leaving without you, but you do have my email.
The Steves have their hands up online.
All right, which Steve?
Steve Brown.
Steve Brown first.
Yeah, I just put this in the chat, but regarding engaging young people, I wonder if we could partner with Stay Work Play. They do a Policy and Pints tour. They're starting it up later this fall, and maybe there's some ways to bring that to Northwood or other towns in the region.
I guess I'm next. Yeah, so speaking of town center stuff, a few weeks ago, Barrington did have sort of a dry run attempt that went quite well of a town center event. There was music, there was food, there was various kiosks of experts talking about doing some exercises on sort of visioning what the citizenry would like to see going forward in that area. And I learned quite a few things. I got to connect with some people, and I wasn't aware that there's a community garden in Barrington, so that was very nice to see. And I visited with them. Barrington's figuring it out, and could be a good example for Northwood and elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. No, thank you. Yeah, and, anything more, Steve? Your hand's still up. And Lisa?
Paul,
Yes, I know it's really for commission members, but just piggybacking off of what Katrin had said, consider that for your emergency shelters. If you're looking at really doing the right thing for the emergencies, solar is a great way to continue power to people. So thank you.
just to expand on what Steve had to say, part of the Sunday, as they call it, Sun Day, a number of houses in town are selected to exhibit their solar systems and, what can be done in terms of energy conservation. It turns out, my house was one of the ones selected. So it was really a trip to be able to say, go beyond theoretical. We've actually done this. It's been in place for the last, we put it in 2014. So people say, oh, this is actually working. It shows them electric bill.
Moving on.
Annual reports are out and we're at the table. I don't know if we had enough copies. If anyone didn't get a copy and would like one, I have it here. We will get them printed, like on nice shiny paper, but wanted to have some ready for today. And I am also going to note, if you are looking at the tables on pages 12 through 18, that is not the font that it should be. I don't know what the printer did. So, and it's really bothering me. So, keep it in. So. Yes, no problem. Yeah, so I'm just really excited. We have our annual report out a little bit late this year. But highlights a lot of the great things that the Planning Commission accomplished over the last year. And tries to give a balanced view of the variety of different work that we do here at the Planning Commission. If you are ever out talking to your community and need a great, slightly more than handout, to demonstrate the work that we do, this is a great resource and happy to have additional copies available. Thanks.
Minutes.
Oh, Katrin, do you have a contact for SoulSmart or for people, just for my little memo? Cool. Please, thank you.
All right, September 19 minutes. Any thoughts? Approval of September 19 minutes. Second. All in favor? Aye. Do we need to do roll call vote?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
I'll start it off. Paul Rasmussen, aye. John Nolan, aye. Aye. Mike Paczynski. It's an aye. Mike Paczynski.
Kate Broussard, aye. I'm allowed to vote. Jim Casper.
And Nelson, yes.
Matt Down, aye.
Steve Stansel, aye.
Rick Healy, aye. Steve Brown.
Steve Diamond, aye.
Lindsay Williams, aye.
Steve Brown
Steve Brown, aye.
and Bill.
Aye.
Perfect. You amended SRPC bylaws, Jen.
Yes. No big surprises here. we have looked at these, the last two meetings. I think 2 meetings ago, we looked at the global bylaws and some of the reshuffling and the preliminary framework for the formalized Economic Development District Board of Directors and its strategy committee, which serves as the advisory committee. At the last meeting, we looked at the membership composition for those two entities and kind of provided that final direction, and that has now been incorporated into the final set of amendments that are before you today. These were sent out much earlier than a packet normally goes, again, because I believe we have a 20-day review period before they can be voted on, so we definitely met that. So at this point, we are just looking to approve or adopt the amended bylaws. I'm happy to go into any more detail if anyone would like me to. I know the blue is extremely bold in the printed version. It looks great on screen. But the modifications, rather than do everything in track changes, because we thought that looked messy, it's just highlighted.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended bylaws.
Need a second first?
I'll second.
Second by Steve Stanfield. Discussion, Michael?
Question, somewhat tangential, but in Article 12, the indemnification of damages, this whole thing was reviewed by an attorney here.
Ages ago, that part I don't think has changed.
So it's a statement that simply says the commission adopts RSA 31-105 indemnification for damages.
Correct.
Which is the powers and duties of towns and liability for damages all of their employees and boards and commissions. My question is, does that warrant a more affirmative statement than simply saying you adopt the RSA, but like, the RSA doesn't say that you're going to do something. It simply says the towns have the authority to do that.
That is a great question. I think that line has been that line for a very long time.
And I've looked at this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was reading this stuff again prior to this meeting and it was contact.
We can certainly revisit it. And I can make an inquiry about it.
Yeah, we always amend it later, so fine.
Yeah.
Just seems to me it warrants the statement that is the intention of the SRPC to fully utilize the benefits of this statement, full harmless, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
You ready to vote?
In Article 10 on the strategy committee, it's just, it may have struck me in other segments of the document, but the voting members and list these folks, and I know we talked about it at the last meeting, so I'm fine with how that's in there. I'm just curious who recruits those folks?
Yeah, that is a very great question. We're talking about that internally. One piece of it, make it in here. So the initial thought is because we're creating this entity from scratch. That now with the framework in place, staff will go about the recruitment process to try and identify individuals. In many of these, there are people we are already working with. So we have the Seacoast Economic Development stakeholder calls that we host each month. They have been doubling informally as our strategy committee. So there are already actively engaged representatives of many of these entities there. Where we don't have the strength in that group is representatives of different businesses. And so that's where we're going to have to do a little bit more legwork. We've been working with our counterparts at Stratford Economic Development Corporation to formulate this, and they are helping us to also identify representatives from different businesses they've worked with as well, on the financing side.
Well, and it strikes me that we all can probably help too, right?
Yes.
Recommendations,
If
referrals and stuff.
100%. If you have a recommendation, please, you can send it to me, or more expediently, you can send it to Mike and Natalie. You're more than welcome to do that. The intent is also that initially we will bring a full slate of members to you all to bless that initial slate of membership. And we're gonna have to go from there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Online, Steve?
Yes, thank you. I noticed it says one of the change phrases here is talks about coastal resilience. Why don't we just be more general and nix the word coastal, or get more specific about other ways we want to be resilient?
Steve, can you point me to, is that,
Page or paragraph?
Responsibilities, Article 5.
Yes. It actually specifically referencing coastal resilience because we are part of, or part of our region is part of the formal coastal zone. And so we actual relationship with DES, kind of flow down from NOAA to work within that coastal zone. So I think that was why it is specifically called out as coastal resilience.
Okay, I'm open to being specific that way, especially if we're specific about trying to be resilient about other kinds of disasters like hurricanes or ice storms or any other kind of disruption we want to be able to respond well to.
Yeah, Steve, I'll also mention that these bullets are pulled and directly are summarizing RSA 36, which is our statutory responsibilities. It's yes, it's an abbreviated version of that. But in statute, we technically only do resilience when it comes to coastal resilience, which is silly, but that's kind of the general reference in the statutes. I don't know the laws.
Paul Rasmussen, aye. John Millen, aye.
Mike Babinski, aye.
Mark Richardson, aye. Mike Levin, aye.
Dave Broussard, aye. Jane Casper, aye.
Sarah Reisman, aye.
Peter Nelson,
And John, aye.
Steve Stansel, aye.
Don Falk, aye. Don Manzer, aye. Rick Healy, aye. Online,
Steve Diamond,
Aye.
Lindsay,
Lindsay Williams, aye.
Steve Brown,
Steve Brown, aye.
and Bill.
Bill Watson, aye.
that gets us to the MTO discussion. Gassett.
That is me. Stand by while I get set up. Oh, Rachel just said the annual report is going to be online on the website very soon. And yeah, you did swap the screens around. Folks online seeing my PowerPoint? Great, thank you. So thank you again for Bill for why. Thank you again, Bill, for being in attendance, to back up. Jen mentioned at the EC meeting that DOT staff have been going flat out, attending all the gas hearings. Our slate of hearings is coming up this coming Thursday. It's a full day, starting in Durham, in the morning and ending it'll go to Dover and Rochester, and then the final one in our region is in Farmington at 7:30. I will be attending all four and giving this presentation with some addition from you all at the end. Just some front matter, introducing SRPC. We're governed by you all, the representatives of the 18 municipalities. We're a forum for regional planning, and specifically transportation is one of our focus areas. We solicit projects to be added to the 10-year plan. This is under state law. The member municipalities submit those candidate projects, which get reviewed by engineers and scored by members of the technical advisory committee and the commissioners. And we traditionally have submitted those projects to DOT in, or most recently in March of 2025. We requested $5.8 million worth of new projects. And those projects are not included in the draft 10-year plan because of the overall costs that DOT staff will have mentioned before my part of the presentation. Forgot to mention the order. DOT will give a 15-minute-ish presentation, then I have 5, and then we go to public comment. So emphasizing the time for public comment. So I will be getting this down to under 5 minutes. There are new projects moving into the 10-year plan, which will benefit the region. These are all from dedicated sources like the Highway Safety Improvement Program, State Aid Bridge and Turnpike Program, and that's almost $26 million. That's a good thing. Those were moving forward. The Transportation Alternatives Program, 2 new projects that got approved, got recommended by DOT to be added to the plan. Durham's Madbury Road Complete Streets project that's in progress, and Farmington improving pedestrian crossing and facilities in their downtown. Couple of big projects. Well, one big project, the 108 Complete Streets project that has been in development. The construction phase of that project is proposed to be removed from the 10-year plan. And retaining the 14 million for PE and right of way. So that project is up to $40 million, and the construction funding, removing that is one of the ways DOT is ensuring that the plan is constrained. Similarly, Northwood Nottingham, at US 4 and 152, this project is retaining funds for PE and right of way. That phase of work has begun, but construction funds will be removed from the draft 10-year plan.
What does that mean?
Good question. It's essentially, the intent is to complete the construction phase at a future date. But until more money is found, that is on hold.
So the 650 is just for preliminary engineering work?
It's for the preliminary engineering and right-of-way acquisition, both of which will be needed, depending on which alternative is selected. But the roundabout alternative kind of got more nods than nothing has been decided at this point, but folks were not excited about a signal at that intersection because of the speed and the slope. So they're looking at alternatives, and that will continue with the 650.
Thank you.
I noted $8 million in safety improvements. These projects are proposed to be cut because revenues have not kept pace with the needs and accelerating project costs in Barrington, Lee, Madbury, Northwood, and Somersworth. The Madbury project I just highlight as one of the first projects that I got put in the 10-year plan when I started at SRPC. So I'm in full circle. And we'll be working on ways to keep these projects moving forward. But they are proposed to be cut from the 10-year.
Is there any point in showing up at a GASIT meeting to argue for not doing them, or is it?
Yes. Yeah, so the summary, it's basically, it's your best opportunity, honestly, to advocate for individual projects. Please go to the legislative hearings as well, but these are the really high profile hearings, and all of this goes into public record or the public comments, and you are speaking directly to a decision maker, the members of GASIT. Their major string they can pull as far as finances are the toll rates, the turnpike toll rates. But this leads directly into what the governor hears when she does her review, and then eventually the legislature. So yeah, if a project is important to your community, it's important to go and say that. And it carries a lot more weight than me talking. So yes.
Is there a scoring system for these projects so that it might be able to see some details on why these projects got bumped?
Yes, DOT will be giving that detail in what they looked at, and very generally it's projects, if they had already made substantial progress, that's a liability to cut that project. So those had to be prioritized. Projects that had substantial need, but it really is across the board. So the I-93 projects, those are proposed to be cut as well, the widening projects, because of the substantial impact that would make in making sure the plan is fiscally constrained. So
there's a DOT will be giving that information.
Yes.
At the gas.
At the gas station.
Is there a way to bring up how recently community or how often community actually does get any of these awards? Like, we haven't had a project in X number of years. Is that easier than a huge slip?
I don't know how I would do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Specifically with regard to the one-way project, and this is just something that last night really kind of came across my mind. I know with the concrete road underneath that, and certain underneath that road, that removing that significantly increased the cost.
Yep.
But first, the question: how long is it projected that the project would take to construct from one end to the other?
Oh, yikes, I forget what the,
Because what I'm wondering
project
is
dates
if
are.
we could start at the other end. If the concrete road underneath the beginning part of it is a stumbling block and increased cost, could they start at the other end and come from Rochester towards Dover?
Yeah.
Just
Certainly.
to begin it,
Yeah.
just to get it going.
And the project construction will take multiple phases. So that would be a good bit of advice. And we had, well, I shouldn't say we, I couldn't attend the meeting, but, the three cities and DOT had a meeting, kind of getting the lay of the land. They're working on permitting. The right of way phase of that is going to take a long time. It's a tricky situation because you want to do, a corridor improvement is better than just a lot of spot treatments. But for the corridor, you have a lot of properties along 108, and each one of those is going to have to be assessed. The square footage impact, individual landowners contacted, all of that before you even start digging through that concrete road, and all that, so that the permitting and right of way will continue.
I'm thinking that, with the courthouse now underway,
Yep.
being built at the, there, just before the airport. And people I read recently about people who are talking about in Rochester, look at all that land where the airport is. And, it's just an airport. So, clearly there were some people who were thinking of it beyond into Rochester's, whether it's commercial development or whether it's manufacturing or whatever, thinking of that.
Yep.
And it just makes sense to me to sort of delay a whole project and maybe start from the other end.
And yeah, traffic will continue to be generated by new development along that route, especially in Somersworth.
Yeah, just to build on what Mark was saying, so the three cities involved, Dover, Rochester, and Somersworth, met recently, literally yesterday, as a quick follow-up.
Last week,
last week. And among the takeaways is that all three cities support the project and will be advocating for the project to continue. We certainly support the engineering and right-of-way phase, but then to also push toward restoring funding for construction, moving the project along. It's a 5-mile corridor. Colin's right, there's the right-of-way taking is complicated. There's probably 200 properties, plus or minus involved, so that is not an easy feat. So we do understand it's a long period of time, but meanwhile, development's happening. That's the concern. And certainly, it's a 5-mile corridor, probably 3 miles plus or minus is in the Somersworth area. We're seeing some regular development there, and some substantial developments. Actually, the sports hub, which is probably the largest New England indoor sports arena in New England, and new dealerships. I think we're going to start to see some inquiries about housing, given zoning laws that allow mixed use in the commercial or industrial zones. So that corridor, and certainly Rochester as well, all the way to Dover. So we really see that as our priority project. Obviously, in Somersworth, there's the intersection project. We hate to see that cut. We hope we can advocate or at least have that project in the future ones. But definitely Route 108's got quite a lot of regional implications. So we really want to see that continue. And we'll be talking about that at the gas hearings next week.
And the long and the short of it is, without additional revenue, the projects won't they'll keep getting kicked down the road. And it will only get worse. Its project costs continue to escalate. The dollar just doesn't go as far. And so the core message is, these cuts are being made. DOT's proposal is to cut projects in favor of the needed maintenance for bridges and pavement. I don't think that's a bad argument, So wondering what my direct ask to you is, what do you want me to say relative to revenue generation? It's the three we've talked about are raising turnpike toll rates, raising the gas tax, the state gas tax, and then the local option fee is more on the municipal side, but that raises additional revenue for municipalities to match projects like TAP or CMAQ. That is already in place. The maximum is $5. Previous attempts legislatively to raise it to 10 have failed, but that's another way to, at the local level at least, to increase capacity for projects to help them move along. And one last little tiny detail on the toll rates, how that helps things broadly. The state law currently requires or restricts turnpike toll revenues to go directly into the turnpike for capital projects. Without capital projects, the state does not raise turnpike toll credits, which they use in lieu of cash for non-turnpike projects. So those capital projects on the turnpike, without additional toll revenues, those can't happen, and that is a ripple effect out to other projects like 108, complete streets, because the state doesn't raise cash to match the federal dollars for that 20% that they use. That make sense? Okay.
I had an idea for another option, all right, because all of these seem to be somewhat restricted. And the gas tax is one that's going to start disappearing anyway. Which is, similar to the way we have a real estate transfer tax, propose a motor vehicle that would go directly into funding DOT. So I'd like to toss that up for discussion and see people's opinions are, because that could be something we could finish together.
Town sales tax.
It's effectively a use fee, right? It's a replacement for the gas tax, essentially.
On that revenue question, what are the state laws in terms of where tolls can be only on?
Geographically?
Yeah.
I don't know the specific laws on where the toll collection points would be. I believe that's another thing Gasset plays a role in is the toll booths, not just the location, but they've played a role in shutting down certain ones in the past on various exits. So I don't know if there's geographic restrictions as long as it's on the turnpike. So I think, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, there was there was some discussion of expanding the turnpike on 93 north and adding additional collection there. Is that correct? A correct statement?
So there's been conversation about extending the turnpike north through Concord further. There hasn't been any conversation about adding additional toll booths, but that has been discussed in the past. In fact, out in Nashua, all the tunnels still exist for a proposed toll booth right at the state line of the Everett Turnpike. But between the executive council and the legislature making actions a bunch of years ago now, about 20 years ago now, that toll booth never went forward. It's a decision that needs the support of both the executive council and the legislature to put new locations in.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to think people up, because we also have.
I'd like to get in the queue too.
Yeah, is it a continuation?
It's, yeah, it's sort of part of it. So there is no restriction on where it can be. The other part of the question is the electronic tolling strikes me as being extremely expensive based upon what I would observe for construction of those things. In today's technology, there's got to be a simpler, easier way of tracking responders as they go by. Because they seem to spend like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for these huge gantries of electronic device. If there is a less expensive toll thing, makes sense in terms of it applies to users' frequency that they use things, but you're levying that all on like 93 and 95, 101 going back and forth east and west. You know, people that are on that route every day using that road. I think. So if there was an easier, less expensive way of implementing tolls, roads, it seems to me that that would be a technology thing to use it, apply to different places, and actually apply, whatever you want to call it, more equitably based upon the user of that area, geographically.
Yeah, I have just a few things. The other thing to consider is that turnpike, revenues and gas tax revenues are restricted, cannot be used to support public transit. That's another thing to consider that we discussed at the TAC meeting. I know a state or a turnpike operator legally there has to be a way to avoid the toll, honestly. So when you say, last exit before toll, someone has to have the ability to avoid it. So that may be a thing here where you're designating a turnpike toll, and if there is no alternative to 101, that might be an issue. So, but just to say, I think the all electronic tolling is the least expensive way, and the expense of some of those projects like the Rochester one, most of that might have been the sound walls. Because if you think about it, transitioning to an all electronic, you are no longer paying a human being who has their neck literally hanging out there in traffic. And at least twice a year, some bozo drives through one of those, like, just drives straight through it, because they were impatient or whatever. So you're eliminating a safety factor there, in addition to the congestion and air quality issues that come with stopping and starting. So
I just wanted your response to that. I was surprised. It seemed like not too long ago on 95, the high-speed ones went in, and now suddenly they have to replace them again. It just seems like the life cycle of them aren't there.
I'm sure, yeah.
I think it was switching the technologies.
It's like open road tolling is where you have cash booths, and so everything is switching to all electronic. But
I think they had initially installed one type in a few locations, and then when they went to go to all of them.
all right, we have a whole bunch.
But nonetheless,
Yes.
Would it be possible to have a graph where it shows the toll rate and inflation?
DOT has a bunch of that in their
They
presentation
do.
showing that New Hampshire is in the bottom quarter of states that have toll rates. And it has, the last time the toll rates in New Hampshire got raised was 2007. So we're way behind. It's not even indexed to inflation. Yeah.
I would just as a really quick follow-up on that. DOT is really good at putting all of the 10-year plan materials online. So I'm sure the presentation from the prior NASA hearings that is already there, which would have some of that scoring discussion,
Yep.
as well as what you're talking about. Just Google NHDOT 10-year plan. It'll be your first result. They're really easy to find.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna go to Steve, Diamond next.
Great, thanks. Colin, I know you have a very limited time to make your presentation. I don't think you've quite made the case for why those projects are needed. So a quick graph of what the population change has been over the last decade might be useful. Some statistics on fatalities and serious injuries in our region in a year. And I don't know if there's a way of quantifying this or making it presented clearly, but trends of congestion of traffic would be of great interest to people. And the potential for these projects to mitigate some of that would be relevant.
Those are some good things to include, Steve. Thank you, especially on the safety thing, to make the case.
This would be a municipal option, but I'm thinking about for communities that charge for parking or should be charging for parking, and where or if those fees are going somewhere specific. So Keene has a parking benefit program in the downtown where all of the revenue that's generated from the downtown parking goes back into the downtown in things like pedestrian infrastructure things and stuff like that. So there's other communities that have similar programs, or again, the communities that probably should be charging for parking but aren't, to generate that extra revenue to support projects. It's probably like smaller pieces, right? It's not going to be like enough revenue to cover these big projects, but like the especially the pedestrians.
Yeah, many communities, Portsmouth, they raise millions of dollars a year that go directly into their infrastructure again. So.
We have tourism is a huge portion of our economic generator. Why are they not the target audience? So to jump off of you, where you have dedicated money from parking going to, we have gazillions of people coming into this state spending money. And so the tolls on the interstates are only for interstate maintenance, correct?
The revenues, yes, and the visitors are getting captured, and
so little towns like Northwood get nothing from.
Unless you consider the flow down of capital projects on the turnpike equals match that goes to that Northwood project that's getting there. So it's not a direct, but a couple of degrees separation.
It's indirect, but
Yeah.
it generates.
The meals and rooms tax those revenues don't relate directly to.
And so there's a lot of this trying to make up for a loss of federal money?
No, it's making up for lack of state investment. The federal dollars are there. The state already pay 0 real dollars for that 20% match. And the way that those non-real dollars are generated it's not kept up. The gas tax wasn't raised. Last time it was raised was SB 367. Remind me of the date, Bill or somebody?
Yeah, can I jump in here, Colin? So the last time the gas taxes was updated was 2014 for SB 367, and that was a 4.2 cent gas tax increase to pay for I-93 loans that the state took. Prior to that, a statewide toll increase, you have to go back to the 90s for gas tax increase. On the toll side, we can talk about, and I don't want to derail your conversation. We appreciate the use of toll credits, and we would love to see toll rates raised if the legislature isn't going to vote for us to have cash match to match projects. But the fact that we are talking about a toll increase during the gas hearings has nothing to do with turnpike toll credits. It's a secondary impact. It has to do with the fact that we can't build the 89 and 93 widening through Bow and Concord because we don't have enough capital funds available. It's a hundreds of millions of dollars project, and we don't have the capital funding to rebuild the exit 6 and 7 interchange area of Interstate 293 through the downtown Millyard area. Again, that's a $300 million project. We don't have the cash to build those two projects. So we are open to discussing a toll at the gas hearings to directly support those two projects, to consider all electronic tolling at other locations to make it more efficient and cheaper for people to go through, and to consider what else we can do along the turnpike system as a whole. But that's the very specific reason why we're talking about a toll increase at the gas hearings.
A couple things. One is obviously the gas tax is a strange creature because we should be charging people more to use gas to discourage the use of burning fossil fuels. We're paying for a subsidized fossil fuel industry, and gas tax is going to continue to decline. So the writing's on the wall because we're trying to promote electric driving. So that needs to be factored in as well. So the only way to really look at it is it's a broad use tax for people who are using the transportation system. And we've rejected, in certain municipalities now, there's a fee for electric car drivers that you have to now pay a fee for registering your electric car. The question that still needs to be revisited and rethought is the formula for anybody that owns a vehicle paying some sort of use tax based on a formula of the weight of your vehicle and the miles driven. So if you tie that vehicle back to how much that vehicle is being used and wearing down the road, you could come up with a broad-based transportation use tax that benefits the whole state and not just an interstate system. So I still don't understand why there's not a broader, more intellectual discussion that actually looks at it from a deeper financial perspective on how much money would be raised by changing that system, which could be instituted at a local level when you register your car. We've done away with car inspections, so you're not even getting your car inspected anymore. So we have no system for automobile safety on an annual basis. But we could certainly implement a system that measures how far everybody drives, and when you still have to register your car for tax purposes based on the type of car, the weight of the car you're driving, the number of tires, whatever the formula is, that is a more fair overall system for a broader transportation use tax that I think should be explored in detail. And I think we should be coming up with formulas for how that could be done. And I think we could do that here, even on a regional basis, to run some of those numbers and say, what would that translate into and how would that compare against, a nominal gas tax or toll increase?
So that is happening legislatively. Those commissions have existed for a number of years now. It's not as simple as you're describing it, but the concepts are the same. And that's a legislative decision ultimately. And I will say, if that's how individuals or the Stratford Regional Planning Commission feels as an organization, you have an advocate right there in the state Senate in your region. David Waters is very progressive and very favorable to transportation funding solutions that make sense and can be implemented fairly straightforwardly. He and Senator McConkey, just north of, you got maybe Senator Mark McConkey's area comes down into Stratford a little bit. But the two of them, decided to do a bipartisan effort to anger the governor last session and say to her, you need to be looking at revenue and toll rates. She didn't receive it well, but it certainly sent it was a shot across the bow for her to start paying attention to other revenue sources for transportation. But that is a very political process. We have done a lot of that analysis, and we've seen a lot of states do that analysis, and we try to feed that to the legislature as they go through this process. Politics is politics and is not always common sense. But we do believe that those efforts are happening legislatively, and if people really feel that we should be moving the methodology to something different, and yes, we've heard that a lot at 18 public hearings, and yes, that's one of the reasons why you should all be coming out to the Gassett hearings next week, whether it's the 4 on Thursday or the other 4 the rest of the week, because we've got 8 more next week to wrap up. Those are the reasons to be getting out and talking to Executive Councillor Kenny, the commissioners, and we've had many, much more this round than in the past, state reps and state senators at these hearings, taking notes, making comments, and preparing for when they receive the 10-year plan in committees in the legislature next winter and spring.
And I'll try to find those bills that have been proposed in the past there too, to include in my memo here, because one of them is very formula based on weight and so forth. As far as I know, unless I'm missing something, there is nothing enabling odometer readings for the mileage based thing, so that would be part of it. Even though the safety inspections didn't do odometer readings, that led to those. For some reason, it's age of the car. Newer cars are more expensive to register than older ones.
Michael, real quick follow-up on that, because that sort of muddled the same issue before, talking about electric vehicles. How do you get movies out of it? Tires, used to be on tires, makes a lot of sense to me because it's a reflection of how many miles you drive in the vehicle, and EVs, it follows the vehicle. And as long as you keep it less than state sales tax in Massachusetts or Maine, certainly when you're going across the border to Massachusetts buy tires, because they're going to be more expensive there anyway.
All of these ideas, Peter and whatever, all of those are targeting us, our citizens. None of these, other than the tolls, are snagging money from our visitors. And I don't know either way, whether it's the registration, however you want to work it, by weight, by tires, by how, whatever, it's all piling on us. I don't see how, I don't think Sarah has anything to say.
I'm going to get back to your point about money from tourists specifically, because I haven't fact checked this myself, but someone recently told me that our tax on hotels and rental cars is significantly lower than other states, like half of what they're charging in other states. So if we increased that, I know the housing advocates want the taxes on hotel rooms because of the impact of short-term rentals, but maybe the rental car part of that goes to transportation specifically. But I'm not a legislator, so it's not fine.
But all these people driving their own cars, if you go up 93 today, and all the peak leavers are going up north, half the cars are not New Hampshire cars.
Yeah, I don't know how to charge them.
Right, Steve?
Yeah, I think tapping the tourists is a good idea, but also the businesses. I mean, in particular with certain projects like the 108 corridor, how do we get the businesses kick in? Like, can we create an economic benefit zone where 0.5% of the property taxes gets paid either to the state or to the locals, which then goes to the state as a match to help pay for these projects?
Just to respond to the general theme here. What keeps coming back to me and has now for more than a decade is that we have to step back, particularly here in New Hampshire, uniquely in the New Hampshire problem. It's we're really fond of these bikini taxes, where you a nickel here, a dime there, we raise this and lower that, and it becomes such a morass that it kind of resembles a New England house that, you know, if we keep adding on additions, and pretty soon it doesn't resemble even a, you know, more of a hotel than a house. And so I would advocate that we get the revenue folks step back and say, what is our total tax picture? What do we need for, you know, income, and then allocate that? I mean, the education, you know, the voucher system is not even fully funded, and they've already, you know, shot past their goals. And so we have all these unfunded liabilities, and then somehow we have to figure out how to fund things that we already said we're gonna fund. So I would advocate that we not do a lot of what we're talking about. As much sense as they sometimes make, and step back and just redesign the whole system to be more efficient.
Early in our session, you, on this topic, Paul, Colin asked, I think you were asking, so what decision do we take or do you take? Funding?
And how specific do you want me to be in my presentation? And one thing that TAC discussed is each cent increase in the gas tax in today's dollars raises $8 million for DOT. So the idea we played around with was a nickel for roads and bridges and a cent for public transit. You know, acknowledging that the legislature would also have to change the law against gas tax going to transit, but $8 million a year for all the transit providers in the state would be life-changing, compared to where it is now. So that was an idea that was thrown around there. So do you want me down to an exact,
Yeah.
the state should raise the gas tax X amount? Or do you want me to say, you know, these projects are being cut, they are very important to communities, please consider additional revenue generation mechanisms? So somewhere on that spectrum, what do you want me to say?
I think I'm comfortable with you being specific, like, it's a great idea and we totally trust you, and maybe leaving the door open. That we get increased revenue, but this is a way and a good one.
I'm concerned about us representing our communities because we are people in a community. So catch that in a commissioner's as represented, actually aware.
Yeah, I'll be careful in my language. The commissioners directed me to advocate for a 6 cent gas tax or what increase or whatever. That's only two people so far.
Yeah, I'm not fond of advocating for a specific 6 cent gas tax increase. First of all, I think it's down the road, it's gonna be useless as we shift to electrical. I'm more of a fan of being more general and say, let's come up with, by next year, the state, some alternative funding mechanisms. You know, whether it's economic development zones, some gas tax possibly, or a number of other options.
So a revenue stream that keeps pace with the cost of things.
I think we need to support both. I mean, we need a fast fix, which a gas tax or a modification to one of the existing options provides, as well as thinking about what's the long-term best way to try to solve
systemic issue.
The gas tax is gonna happen. No matter what we say here, it's gonna happen. And that targets everyone. As far as, adding a tax to tire usage or buying, that's another form of sales tax. And we all know that's not gonna fly in New Hampshire. Mileage tax, that's not gonna fly. The gas tax is the best option, and raising the tolls, which I hate either one, because I drive 36 miles a day. That would take a big bite out of my budget, as it already does. At least for the next 4 years before I retire.
You're gonna drive just as much, trust me.
Well, I can't argue with that, because my wife, she retired from the post office. It's mileage at very low speeds, but she now does DoorDash. And she goes everywhere from Northwood to Biddeford, Maine. And that's just one night. So I spent enough on brakes and tires for her car. Adding more tax to that is gonna be hard enough. Well, since she drives a Subaru. So the gas tax won't hurt me so much for her car, but my truck, the full-size Chevy, it takes a lot more.
And that's a good point on the equity piece of the gas tax and mileage based, where that's gonna hurt lower income folks or people that have to drive for a living.
I work with a few gentlemen that actually drive 50 to 60 miles one way to my shop in Newington. That would greatly, they would probably quit. And then we have to hire somebody else. Also, one more statement on the exit 10, the study. Exit 10 has been on the books for study since 1950. So this being delayed, really, it's not a big deal.
Lindsay?
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, it's a little hard to hear online, but trying to follow most of this. But I just wanted to throw my voice in. I think from what I'm hearing, I really appreciate the ideas around the comments addressing both the short and long-term needs related to this. So there's near-term things that really do need, we don't want to take a ton of time to sort through, but this conversation around sort of longer-term solutions that build in sort of recognizing that behavior change and other factors. And I appreciate the conversation right now on sort of small owner-operator or small people or small businesses that rely on driving for their work. And just that sort of encouragement. I think you were talking about, I couldn't quite hear, but somebody was talking about the idea of that short term, but then also like a longer term plan that really digs into all these different factors so that we're not relying on, or that we're accounting for the fact that our hope is that gas use will go down over time, or things like, I think, Sarah, you're mentioning rental car fee. And those all feel really valuable to consider, but don't address the immediate challenge. So just wanted to put that voice in to underscore. I like that sort of the short and long term, and that the long term is really digging into these behavior changes that we may see and that we may want to see. And so we don't want to sign ourselves up to be really dependent on these revenue streams that we actually hope might go away.
We really care about the cost of getting from place to place for people that find that challenging, and we care about not having as much expense for wear and tear, and we care about safety. We continue to talk about public transportation. We don't keep pretending to.
What you were talking about as far as exit 10. Yeah, that's been around for a long time, but it was Mayor Macklin who got it onto the 10-year plan because exit 10 was a big deal for him for the development of Route 108. And I've said this many times. I've said this in planning board and everything else. And 108's developed just fine without exit 10. So I think that that portion of the money in this plan should just be dumped. You know, we don't need it. Rochester's built housing in the area where they were originally predicting for exit 10 to be. So, you know, unless there's somewhere else, what difference does it make? Exit 10, 108 is developed just fine on its own. My problem with it is, I mean, you mentioned the dome. That was held up for a whole, they had several extensions because they weren't getting, there was an issue about the intersection with 108. I'm trying to remember whether it was putting in a turning lane or whatever it was. We finally waived that requirement on their application so they could get it built and put it in because it's done a tremendous amount of, you know, it's been an asset in drawing people to our city and to using the gas stations and whatever else along Route 108. But what we lacked, and what we normally do with businesses is do an exaction from those businesses. Put it, Kenny Vincent was the last one to put in a turning lane for his fireworks store. And we gave that up. You know, no turning, you don't have to be responsible for a turning lane, you don't have to be responsible for crosswalks, you don't have to be responsible for traffic lights or any of that, or sidewalks. Any of that safety stuff was just, we stopped asking people to do. Why have them do it if Route 108 is just gonna dig it all up and expand it? So that's created traffic issues, that's created safety issues on Route 108. This, to continue to stall this as 108 continues to develop with housing and whatever else is only going to exacerbate that problem. And the exit 10 is the feasibility study for that should be just dumped altogether. And that's my view on that. But the other thing about the gas tax covering everybody, no, it doesn't. It doesn't cover electronic vehicles. And with now people saying that the average cost of an automobile is $50,000, there's going to be a lot of people buying used gas cars in the next several years. I can guarantee that. But nevertheless, electric vehicles, whether it's at registration or something like that, should be kicking in their fair share for using the highways. It's not just the gas tax. To get everybody, you've got to hit the electric.
EV users pay $100 additional for their registration. I think that was based on the average number of gallons of gas that a user would buy in a year.
Yeah, which is a fake number. You know, there should be a class action suit by electric car owners to say, you know, no basis in fact for leveraging a flat fee. It doesn't make sense. It's not, again, it's not fair. You need to go for fairness overall.
That's what mileage comes in.
I'm personally fine with paying a little extra to make sure the roads stay paved, but Steve Pesci has a good example of how that bill didn't cover all the bases, where he drives an electric moped that costs $6 to register a year, and now it costs $106 for an electric moped, which has negligible impact on the road. So to your point of carefully crafting legislation. So anyway. Enough about me. So if I can sort of summarize, to try at least, I really like the idea of communicating a quick improvement to make the 10-year plan whole, plus considering a long-term approach that keeps pace with the cost of maintaining and improving the transportation system. So within that, I heard broad, well, support for public transit. Do you want me to say specifically?
Yeah.
Make public transit eligible for gas tax revenues and turnpike toll revenues? Those are two separate things that would have to be addressed legislatively.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so support for public transit being eligible for turnpike toll revenues and gas tax revenue. Do we want, how do you, some push and pull on an exact number?
So we,
Sorry.
Yeah, we can just do it.
I was gonna say, we know a 5 cent increase on the gas tax would be equivalent over 10 years to the 400 million shortage. For example, goes there too.
40 million a year is, the nickel raises 40 million a year.
I would include something about an inflation adjustment. Whatever you do, the problem is it doesn't keep pace, and no one wants to be the one that has to legislate an increase. So if you build it one time, sense, whatever, but it be adjusted biannually, every 2 years based on inflation.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Index to inflation.
Right, and then nobody has to, you just have to accrue one time.
I don't see an index ever passing, but sure, talk about it. And it feels like this is the time to talk about these hard things, because we have this, if we don't do it, $400 million is gone from the 10-year plan, and that's projects all across the board. It's little projects, well, not little projects, but projects in Northwood and the I-93 expansion that's been worked on for how many decades?
When we think small, we get small.
Nice. It'd be a little book from.
It's the coffee, I don't drink coffee.
What else did you have in yours? That, also, I want to make sure I understood if you want, but we were, someone posed, like a show of hands on an exact number. I will say, should I say is specific to whatever the long-term improvement is, that should include being indexed to inflation. And maybe it sounds like we need kind of additional discussion and an up and down vote on an exact number. If you want me to say the short-term fix it should be X, if that's 5 cents gas tax increase, or 6 cents for one for transit.
You can't use the one for transit unless they change things.
Right, but being careful or
Wording.
saying that verbally.
So vote yes on that.
So is that, so we need to make a
I
motion?
object to it. Again, it's too easy. We will not find an alternative funding source if we just throw out gas tax. So I've got a problem with defining a number. I don't think we're expert enough. Sweet, but I think there should be betterment zones created for some of these projects. I think we could fund 108 tomorrow. We could convince the state to put the money back in. If we say communities will pay this much more because we're going to create a betterment zone, and 1 penny or half a penny or 0.5% of the increased tax revenue generated because of the improvements will go directly to this project. I mean, then they're paying their fair share. If we're not taking money from these businesses up front, create these turning lanes, et cetera, when we come back afterwards, they should have to contribute. And if we say just throw 5 cent tax at it, we'll never see those betterments.
Bill has his statement.
Can I make so I'm not going to vote on this no matter what you guys talk about. That's okay. But an observation based on 18 GASSET hearings so far right now. I don't think there's been a single person or a single organization that has recommended a specific amount for a gas tax increase if that's what if supported. There's been many comments about supporting revenue enhancement. There's been many comments about supporting a gas tax increase. There's been many comments and against gas tax, and there's been many comments about a toll increase or not. These aren't the audience members that can do anything about the details that you're talking about. Again, as I tried to say earlier, they can there'll be state reps and state senators available that can take this information for when they discuss the 10-year plan in committee. But Councillor Kenny does not have the ability to talk about any sort of revenue enhancement with any authority other than a toll increase. So the audience needs to be considered as part of the conversations that you're having. In our observation of what we've seen so far, not that people, if you're all talking about that, at the regional level, it's very important to be talking about it. Just make sure your message is clear for the councillors that they have something concrete to pass along to the governor and to the legislature. So I guess a recommendation might be to talk specifically about a short-term revenue enhancement that might include a gas tax increase if that's what you're interested in supporting, maybe a toll increase if that's what you're interested in supporting, but also consideration for more equitable based revenue enhancements to be discussed and looked at within the legislature, things that might include as exaction fees or development fees or a usage and a weight-based fee, whatever it might be. Leave it general. You'll have better results if, as an organization, Stratford Regional Planning Commission speaks in a general sense.
I think Bill just made the motion. Now we got vote.
Senator Craig has traditionally attended the Gaston hearings and spoken for public transit and the Route 11 project in Rochester, and he's on one of the finance committees. So he's another player that is even worth directly following up with after the Gaston hearings before the legislature takes this.
All right, so if I can.
Somebody mentioned earlier, safety and those things. I think more weight and some of that. Looking back, economic development, increase, human, beach, all those kinds of things. I think generate revenue to the state. Do these things and generate revenue.
Or without a transportation system, that revenue generation will fall short as communities.
Economic development, get to where it's a major issue, data plan, not just our region.
Okay. I'm gonna try and recap. If I can do that, maybe someone can turn it into a motion or just say. So Colin is gonna make some light modifications to his presentation that will incorporate some more perhaps visuals to demonstrate population change, safety, like we have a hotspot map of fatalities and serious injuries. I'm sure we have something congestion related that we could also include in there. So something that just makes that case for why in the presentation. And then as that final slide of the presentation, advocate for say that the commission advocates for a quick improvement to revenue streams that might include increased tolls or gas taxes, but that the commission strongly recommends a formulation of a new system for revenue generation that equitably considers all transportation users and their impacts to our transportation network. That is also indexed to inflation to mitigate continually returning to the well.
So move.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing is, public transit. You know,
Yes,
say-
if it's transit,
Specific.
yes, and we support that, transit be eligible for state revenues.
Amendments. So.
So John, and who was the second? Okay, Sarah.
Sorry.
I haven't.
I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
in favor? Aye. Roll call.
yeah. roll call.
Paul Rasmussen, aye. John Mullen,
Mike Babinski, aye.
Mark Richardson, aye.
aye. Whitman, aye.
Pete Lazardo. Jim Casper, aye. Sarah Reese, aye.
Peter Nelson,
Aye.
Steve Sansel, aye.
Tom Falk, aye. Ron Mancher, aye.
Rick Healy, aye.
Online.
Steve Diamond,
Steve Diamond, aye.
Lindsay
Lindsay?
Williams, aye.
thank you. Steve Brown
Steve Brown, aye.
and Bill abstaining, I assume.
I'm going to abstain, but can we go back to the slide that you talk about cutting the new projects? I'm going to throw a wrinkle in your just right here.
Please.
Can you make one modification that simply says in March that have been not included in the draft plan instead of cut?
Yeah,
That's
Oh,
been
yes.
a confusing point for the counselors because that statement's been made every hearing and they come back and say, wait a minute, they're never in there. How could they be cut?
yeah, thank you, Bill.
Thank you. So abstain and thank you for indulging me.
Okay.
And the sort of local and regional revenue generation is something I'm interested to come back to with this like push-pull of we want things like the Sports Dome to come in and these other businesses. But how do you incorporate, traffic impacts or where, a small business might, generate 5 trips a day or something like that. And that isn't seen as a big impact, but over time, oops, the corridor is totally, now you do a whole corridor. You all kind of talked about that a little bit. I'm really interested in that, like the exactions. Dover is moving away from offsite exactions in their planning process. What does that look like at a regional scale? To make sure that the transportation system is whole, that we have public transit, pedestrian access, and safe corridors that aren't jammed.
So I also think, so moving forward on the bigger picture funding mechanisms, this is where we start to get into that walking the fine line of what we can and cannot do with federal dollars. So to the extent that we can do some great research, we can formulate ideas, we can advocate for certain things, we just can't lobby. So one of the things that we might turn and look to you all for is making those connections to legislators. Like we can formulate ideas, we need that support from our volunteers to make that happen. The other thing I'll say is like we can start today in talking about a business investment zone. We have 2 economic development planners on staff that could jump right in and be thinking about those transportation benefits that could be generated. So that's something we can certainly be talking about. I'm going to jump ahead on like the next, well, briefly on the next thing on the agenda is, one of the things we were talking about internally is that with limited 10-year plan dollars, we've always had, or not always, but in the last several years, had engineering support to scope and budget new projects for consideration in the 10-year plan process. Now we're looking at it and saying, well, we already have a queue of projects. How can we better utilize that engineering support? And one of the things we're looking at and considering is building the case for competing for larger pools of competitive funding. So 108 project, could we go after a build grant? Doing something, a nationally competitive thing. We just completed the safety action plan. Can we bundle some of the projects from that and go after Safe Streets for All implementation dollars that would benefit multiple communities? So rethinking how we engage the services of that engineer to support moving projects forward within a different paradigm. So that's just what one big piece there. I know we are at time, so I kind of just jumped and threw that out there.
Yeah.
I want everyone to pull out their pen or their keypad. I'm gonna read you the Gasset hearing times. And you're gonna write down at least one of them. Ready?
What are you doing?
I'm gonna read you when the Gasset hearings are.
Oh,
On Thursday.
Thursday, October 23rd. 10 a.m. Durham Town Office, I presume in the council chambers. 1 p.m. Dover in the council chambers. 4 p.m. Rochester City Hall Auditorium. 7:30 p.m. Farmington Board of Selectmen's room.
No, one more time, Crystal, right?
Yes. They also are on the calendar,
Okay.
on the DOT schedule.
I just found
You got it, 10 a.m. Durham, 1 p.m. Dover, 4 p.m. Rochester, 7:30 p.m. Farmington. Those are all in council chambers or auditoriums in those facilities. So we hope to see you at, one of them.
They're all, Jen, they're all also online if people cannot get there in person.
Yes. Thank you,
All
Bill.
of them are online and you can provide testimony online if that's an option that makes things easier for any of you. We've had many people show up in person at meetings and then come online at other meetings just to make sure they tap into other counselors. So you're going to see Counselor Kenny 4 times on Thursday if you go to all 4 hearings. But if you want Counselor Stevens, or if you want Counselor Stephen or Counselor Wheeler or Counselor Lyot Hill to hear it as well, there are other meetings that you can tap. All of them are virtual next week, as well as in person. So use all of the resources you all have if you're interested in helping.
And I will know, if you go to the tenure plan website on DOT's site and you look at the schedule, it is organized by counselor district. It is not organized chronologically. So I, knowing that all of ours are the very last day of all of the hearings, I went to the end of the list and I almost panicked. I was like, oh my gosh, ours are listed. No, they're up at the very top, under a counselor. So.
I'll re-include the information about online information that Bill had. Can I just say one last thing? On what Jen mentioned about the on-call engineering and how we're looking to redirect some of our efforts and our engineers' efforts to other funding sources like build grants. I didn't know build grants come with 0% match for rural communities. I assume that's based on census, but I am proposing, and I wanted to get your consensus or feedback on dedicating a lot of our engineers' efforts to that Safe Streets and Roads for All action plan. I think I can say that after all the scoring process and interviews and so forth, VHB is our top pick, and I've submitted the final thing to DOT to get that ball rolling. Part of what we were excited about is they have an in-house grants nerd who was amazing in talking about how they could help pair projects with funding. And so I'm proposing that we have VHB take the action plan that they wrote and get those projects ready for funding. That's basically my proposal, and to spend their time and effort on that. We have 10-year plan projects that can go back into the queue 2 years from now, when hopefully we have a whole bunch more money for the state, and they can have a project back in. But let's look for implementation dollars through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. We can find a whole bunch of the same kind of project, like converting a 2-way stop to a 4-way stop, get 7 of those throughout the region, get 1 application for all those projects and submit. And VHB is, excited to help do that red tape process as well. So that's kind of where we're headed, and if no one hates that idea, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I would just say that I appreciate that, Colin, maybe just generally, so PHB will be the new, is that a 2-year agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, because currently you have Beta, you're wrapping up Beta engineering.
Beta wrapped up on June 30th, so VHB will go through July or June 30th, 2027.
Yeah, and you had a good process for recruitment and solicitation and so forth. VHB had a strong proposal.
We had 5 submissions total. We whittled it down to 3, VHB, Beta, and Boyle Tanner. I keep thinking, and no one keeps debating me, that safety dollars are the only safe bet in the scope of dollars that are out there federally. No one's voting against improving safety, so dollars for safety improvement will be available. They'll be competitive, but there are lots of low-cost things that can improve safety very quickly. So that's kind of where I'm putting my chips.
And that will come out of the safety or that plan, is that right? Safety plan or about the audits that we've done?
Audits are always an option. The state's highway safety improvement program is going great. So if you have a fatal crash or a serious injury crash, talk to me right away. We can get an application into that. But yes, our regional safety action plan, all the projects that are in there are eligible automatically for implementation dollars. So we're just going to use VHB to kind of take each of those, the priority projects, to the next level. So at some point, I'm going to be coming back to you and saying, we looked through all the projects in that plan. Help us prioritize them or confirm the prioritization that needed to be doing. So, okay.
Other business? Citizens forum? Citizens? Jeremy? Second.
Thank you, everyone.
Here's